Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Soller. I'm the Chief Technical Officer here at Moonbird AI, and I'm going to walk through a demo of Ivory tagging a new website from scratch from a data layer spec. So this demo was first given yesterday on February 13th, but the video didn't make it into the recording, so I'm just going to re-record it now so people can see what we accomplished during the launch party. All right, so we're basically going to walk through this task list. We're going to leverage our product Ivory to do all these things in a few minutes. I might do a little bit of um, jump forward uh, at some point through this, but I'm going to explain all the different features I'm leveraging to accomplish these tasks in a pretty expedient way. All right, so this is Ivory. It has a web app, and on the right-hand side, I'm authenticated into our browser extension. I'm going to authenticate into our web app so I can see, let's call it the back end of Ivory, as well as the front end. So the extension is what makes all the changes within Adobe Launch, and the back end is where we handle different features within Ivory itself. So the launch property, I'm going to do the implementation. It's just this new one. We call it new site. It has an Adobe Analytics extension, client data layer and cord lined up here. It has no rules, no data elements currently. It's going to have a whole bunch of all of those here shortly. So I'm going to do an implementation from start to finish, if you would, or at least a healthy first draft based off of this data layer spec. This is just a fictional financial services company that needs some tracking done. So here's the data layer that they would be implementing on their web property, with nested structure for their data layer. And down here are a bunch of assets that would need to be created inside of Adobe Launch to accomplish the tracking for this. So here's a whole bunch of data layer paths to data elements that we'd want to create in Launch. And down here are just kind of a summary of the different data layer events and the props eVars settings that we want to create to facilitate this tagging. All right, so to get started, let's go back to my list. Oops, Slack. All right, we want to make sure that there's naming conventions for the rules. We want to implement all the data elements, add the data layer events, so the actions for various rules to accomplish this. Set all the variables and events. These are the custom Adobe Analytics variables and events. Send appropriate beacons. Clear the vars after, within every rule. And add consent management, so just a condition. So the rules only fire if the user's consented. So just some fairly typical actions. So to accomplish this with Ivory, I'm going to basically do all of this in about 3 prompts, but I'll walk through how that's accomplished. So to ensure the naming conventions, I'm going to leverage a feature of Ivory called custom instructions. So I've already uploaded these, but uh, many organizations already have these, or I've thought through it, but they're inconsistently applied because developers either don't know about it or there's just like poor governance practices of the implementation team, or time pressures and life. So sometimes people don't get this, don't nail these all the time. But I've already uploaded these instructions, so Ivory's going to listen to these instructions every time we run a prompt in it, essentially. And so if it's creating data elements from scratch or rules from scratch, it's going to uh, take these custom instructions into account when it's performing those actions. So that essentially is going to guarantee the first naming conventions item on my list. There are some other things we're going to leverage from Ivory in here called prompt templates. So these prompt templates, we can create as many as you want. We're going to be expanding on this feature quite a bit. We like it quite a bit, but you can do things like you reuse prompts right now is what essentially this is. So these will show up in Ivory in the extension as I use it. And so I don't have to type all this again, essentially. Again, we'll be expanding on this, but this is how I'm going to accomplish the bulk of the task that we're going to accomplish here. So actually, let me open another one. I'm going to use this prompt template first just to create a cookie data element for OneTrust. It doesn't have to be its own. Just all of this could be accomplished in one prompt in Ivory, but I'm going to leverage this data elements prompt template. So please create the following data elements from the path names. So paths and names is going to be expecting that kind of name pairing. So, um, we are likely to incorporate features into Ivory that would allow you to create data layer specs in a consistent way, but it's not that odd to have a data layer spec very similar to this and to have thought through what paths are being referenced in your data layer. And then giving a naming convention. This isn't actually necessary. I could just give it the paths and Ivory would give these names automatically. But yeah, with a prompt template like I have, I'm going to basically put all of these data layers into replacing this placeholder text here when I'm using Ivory, and we'll get those created, and then I'll go back here to the rules. So this is the final one, and this is going to create the rules, create the proper events from the data layer spec. It's going to set all the variables that are that in those examples from the data layer spec, and I'll show that as I work through it. And it's going to send the beacon, the appropriate beacon, and do a clear virus. And finally, it's going to make sure that there's a condition on it. So, all right, let me get started. So, Ivory again works on Adobe tags or Adobe Launch. I need to make sure that it's pointed at the correct property, which it is, and then let me get started then. I'm going to grab that first OneTrust template and start generating that. So this is going to populate that first data element. You don't have to stay on the page while you're doing it. Ivory's still locked into that property. Oh, that's pretty quick actually. So let me just go back. Of course, we are going to be continuously improving the performance of Ivory over time. We just want to get some adoption first and see how people are using it so we can tweak it the way we need. Right. Oops. So now I'm going to go and create all of the rest of the data elements. All right. Sure. I'll add the text. So when you use a prompt template, that's what I'm doing over here. It adds to the existing prompts that you have as you've been typing. So you can use prompt templates to build on each other. All right, I still have those data elements on my clipboard, so I'm going to start with those. And I'm going to get all of these up on screen. And that's right. Let's generate them all. I'm just going to parse through that list and create them. So some other features while it's doing that. There's not a lot of mystery behind what it's up to over here. There's activity logs in Ivory. Also another feature. We're going to be expanding on everything. I think I'll just stop mentioning that. But it shows, the consent condition the rule that I just fired, and a little bit of context around that. You can look at the types of activity that are happening. So this is all saved. You can, if you forgot to create a prompt template, or if you particularly like a prompt that you used a while ago, you can go find that activity in your log. So you can copy this text if you want to use it now, or you can save it as a prompt template if there's something you've done in the past that you liked, among many other things from the activity logs that can be useful. My billing page shows my current plan. I'm still in the early bird pricing. That was the pricing released at our launch. If you get that from our launch, we are going to grandfather you in moving forward. And down at the bottom, we have some other links where you can, give feedback if you have bugs or feature requests. Those same links exist inside the extension itself. And we have some usage information here and a link to our Chrome store page to install the extension, of course. All right, I think I'm going to maybe jump ahead a little bit. Ivory just finished. It created all the data elements. You can approve these one by one and flow through them all. But I'm fairly confident, I've done this more than once, that it is correct, and I'm going to approve them all. Go back. Oh, there's links to all of these, of course. I could just click and it will reopen over here, but now all of the data elements are here, not just the consent. You can see environment host goes to environment host, page name to page name, and so on. All right, so we have a basis started here. We have, data elements that reference all the data and, fields within our data layer, all the attributes of the data layer, which is great. Now we just got to create, a couple of rules, a rule for each. So we've done assuring naming conventions. We'll wait for that to finish. Assuring consent, we'll wait for it to finish as well. But we're done data events, data elements. Let's do the rest. All right, back over to Ivory. I can clear this activity and just creating. You can also, update. This is not a full feature walkthrough of Ivory. You can do a lot more than this, but I'll stick to what I'm doing. Okay, rules from the data layer spec. So this is that other prompt template. Actually, I have one more I want to show. This one. So this, I'm going to drop this in as a prompt template. So it is, I'm going to throw it into the bottom here. Event list if needed. So what that is, it just saves me some copying and pasting. So this is, page view event. When it fires, we're going to capture the page name from this data element and so on and so forth. Again, all information you could derive from the spec itself. So, use, hopefully Ivory in the future, but any AI tool should be able to, any large language model out there should be able to parse a document like this, or maybe a markdown version of it, and then be able to produce assets like this at the bottom if they're not already present in a data layer spec that you're working with. But coming up with a list like this is not inconceivable. So instead of copying and pasting from here, because it's multiple pages and it's a bit of a pain, I've already done that. And now I've included it over here. So I'm going to get the generation starting. So again, this is going to add all the rules, give them the proper name, and it's going to add all of the components for those rules, conditions, events, and actions. So again, I'm going to take a little break. All right, Ivory's done. It is now 2:37, so it took approximately 5 minutes. I was hoping we get it done in about 4, but it did a lot. So let's check out what it did. So again, Ivory's not going to make any changes outside of your approvals. It can't not publish when we have no intention on making it ever really able to publish. Certainly not without a lot of consent from users. So right now it just creates things and modifies rules, data elements, components based off of your approval. And you can, of course, deny these things. So it created, I start to click through these, it created essentially all the assets that we're looking for. Again, this is not the first time I've run this, so I'm going to go through the approval and create them all. I'm quite confident, and I'm going to inspect all the elements it made anyway. So now it is creating these one by one. It's not done. It created them all. Now it's finished. Again, you can use these links to go back into any one in particular, or you can just navigate the way you're used to. So I move Ivory out of the way. So let's go to something like the page view and make sure. Okay, first off, actually, let's take a glance at those names. Adobe client. Pretty darn close to what we're looking for. Certainly they are not random names. I'm going to say they're good. And then let's take a look at everything that's going on in here. Again, back page view. All right, so it's using the Adobe client layer, data layer on page view, which is correct. So I'll keep those. It's doing a comparison on the correct data element to the value that I was expecting. It's setting variables, a whole bunch of variables that we were expecting. That looks correct. It is sending a beacon of the correct type, which looks correct, and it's doing a clear vars. Let's double check that it's not just named that, but yes, indeed it is. All right, we'll go back. Yeah, those are fine. Let's just start from the top and look at some of these others. Additional filters applied. We can take a quick look to make sure. Bum, bum. That is correct. Valid comparison again. No surprise. Went through, did all these things. Put in the custom code to track list var 1 and understood some additional context it needs around that rather exceptionally well, in my opinion. Keep those. It sent the correct beacon type for the filters applied and gave it an appropriate name. What more can you ask for? So I can continue to go through them all. They're all correct. So that is Ivory completing about 20 minutes work or 20 minutes, 20 hours. I mean, it could easily take a junior resource longer than that to accomplish all the cross-referencing and you'd have carpal tunnel from the clicking that you'd need to create all those assets. And Ivory did it. I don't know what this was. I didn't actually see the timer, but it was around 15 minutes. So thank you so much for your time. Again, to get Ivory, just ivory.moonbird.ai. You can create a free account for a 14-day trial. And we're still in early bird pricing. So if you lock that in, you can guarantee yourself that moving forward. Thank you so much. Take care.